ahead to Britain's first new nuclear plant for a generation. Theresa May had delayed the decision on Hinkley C while new safeguards were agreed, but critics claim those are worthless.
Also tonight, 5 police officers could face criminal charges after a student was left paralysed.
The care cuts in England leaving the frail fending for themselves.
And what rubbish are the council cuts that mean bins are emptied just once a month?
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale and Mark Austin.
Good evening. The Prime Minister today finally approved the deal that will bring a new nuclear dawn for Britain, signing off the £18 billion power station at Hinkley Point. After weeks of delays, the government said it had negotiated significant new safeguards to the contract over national security concerns.
Labour, though, said the government had failed to get a good enough deal from the Chinese and French companies who are bankrolling the project. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Chris Shipp.
On the shores of the Bristol Channel in Somerset, next to the disused Hinkley Point A and ageing Hinkley Point B, there will now be a Hinkley Point C, confirmed today after what the government called a comprehensive review, but you had to look hard to find the changes. All week, ministers have been working flat out to finalise the deal on the nuclear reactor. Today they announced a deal had been done.
This £18 billion investment in Britain provides an upgrade in our supply of clean energy.
But there was then some polite language suggesting Theresa May didn't think David Cameron had done his homework on the Chinese involvement in Hinkley Point.
The improved deal and the other changes announced today will, for the first time, remedy the weaknesses of the previous regime for foreign ownership.
What he called an improved deal bans the French builder EDF from selling its stake in Hinkley Point to China or anyone else without ministers' approval. And the government will own a share in all future nuclear projects after Hinkley, so it has more control. But there was no change to how the plant will be built or the French and Chinese involvement in it. And no change to the high fee, the £92.50 for every unit of energy produced.
In the end, all they've done is pretend to give themselves powers which they already possessed. It is face-saving by a government that talked big and eventually backed down with a whimper.
Unions representing EDF workers in France don't like it either. At a protest in Paris today on other matters, one said the state-owned company had bitten off more than it can chew. But EDF's boss was visibly relieved.
We're talking about 2025, 2030, 2040. And the conclusion of the review is, yes, indeed, the price is competitive and it is a good deal for the customers.
So David Cameron's deal was reviewed and the review came to the same conclusion. It's about keeping the lights on. The Energy Secretary who visited Hinkley with Mr Cameron in 2013 is not surprised.
I don't know whether it's going to be good value or bad value. I'm quite frank about that. What I do know is we need the power to keep the lights on, to keep our industry going, to make sure people can watch the TV and boil the kettle, and we need the low carbon electricity.
It also means the Chinese can, with conditions, still plan to build their own nuclear power station with their own technology at Bradwell in Essex. So it would be wrong to describe this new contract as a wholesale change, but neither would it be fair to say that Theresa May didn't get any revisions at all, and she will be pleased that the government will continue to have a small stake in all future projects of this kind. But I think here Theresa May has also laid down a marker. She showed that she's not prepared to call in government decisions and check over other people's work, and that tells us quite a lot about how Mrs May plans to do things.
All right, Chris, thanks very much indeed.
Well, our business editor Joel Hills is in Somerset. So, Joel, what's your assessment then of this deal?
Well, look, the government really had very little room for manoeuvre so late in the day. EDF made it very clear any attempt to make the contract less generous and it would walk away. CGN, the state-owned Chinese company, made it clear that any attempt to decouple Bradwell from the deal and it would pull investment out of here at Hinkley. But Both companies have agreed to submit to this new national security test, and it is a significant concession because in principle it means the government will have absolute control over which foreign companies own very important British assets. In practice, though, we've no idea how it will work and, deliciously, whether the Chinese ultimately will pass the test. Hinkley will continue to have a whole host of critics. Many investors, many of them in the city, believe this is still an extraordinarily expensive way of building a new nuclear power station. The technology is as yet unproven. But remember this, CGN and EDF are both bearing the financial risk of construction, any delays, and if it comes to it, failure. The risks are enormous, but so are the rewards.
Okay, Joel Hills in Somerset, thank you.
Well, the deal is very welcome news for workers and businesses near the plant in Somerset. Many companies in the area are hoping to share in the economic benefits. It's thought around 26,000 jobs could be created by the construction of the nuclear plant, as Rupert Evening reports.
Ensuring that this community is hardwired into a multi-billion-pound deal has been the aim from the outset. On the factory floors of Somerset, they've been holding on to an industrial-sized lottery ticket. And today, they can claim the winners.
Definitely a positive thing. A lot of investment coming into the town. Good for local businesses, ourselves. Means our future is secure for a number of years.
I think it's only a good thing that could happen to us, and hopefully for us as a company it'd go up and up.
Chris Pratt has plans for his electrical engineering and manufacturing firm. He's hoping to expand, and Hinkley is a key component.
We have plans. We're looking to build a new factory that's 2.5 times the size of this. That's not just for Hinkley Point, but we want to be able to make sure that we can not only service Hinkley Point, but we can also continue servicing our long-term customers.
Ferrying thousands of workers around is an opportunity for a local bus company who've already capitalised.
We've opened up 80 new jobs with the project already. We see this growing to between sort of 400 and 500. So great news just on our collaboration and our setup that we've got already.
As the pace of work on this vast construction site picks up, the economic benefits will trickle down. EDF has said that 2/3 of contracts will go to UK firms. And for those on the outside, it's now time to secure contracts on the inside. Rupert Evening, ITV News, Somerset.
5 police officers face possible criminal charges over the arrest of a student who was left paralysed and brain damaged. Julian Cole suffered a broken neck after an incident outside a nightclub in Essex 3 years ago. Today, the police watchdog said the officers who detained him may be partly responsible. Well, that was welcomed by Julian's mother, who's long campaigned for justice, as Paul Davis reports.
It's sad to see your son lying there without talking, without saying, "Mom, I love you." It's really hard.
Claudia Cole spends many hours at her son Julian's hospital bedside. He was an athlete and university student until an incident involving 5 police officers. Outside this nightclub in Bedford, the officers arrested and restrained the student. He suffered a broken neck in the process. Claudia Cole told me Julian's brain damage is so severe he barely knows when she is with him.
He's just there. He's just there. He doesn't know. He don't know whether I'm coming or going. He don't know whether it's morning, nighttime or daytime. He's just there. All his ambitions dashed away. All what he was aiming to do.
It is more than 3 years since Julian Cole suffered those life-changing injuries, and no one has been found accountable. This film was made by his friends as part of a campaign to get justice. Today, the police watchdog announced that it would be referring the case to the Crown Prosecution Service, which now has to decide whether 5 Bedfordshire officers will face charges of gross misconduct. Julian's mum says today's decision is long overdue.
I need justice for him. There's 3 things I need and want to know why they did it, who did it, and then I need justice for him.
What she wants, above all, Julian back as he was, she knows she can never have. Paul Davis, ITV News.
Relatives of a mother of 9 who was shot dead in her home along with her nephew have told ITV News it was a case of mistaken identity. The bodies of 52-year-old Annie Akofo and 21-year-old Burville Akofo were found at a flat this morning in North London. Our reporter Sejal Karia is there this evening. Sejal, an awful event this. What is the family saying?
Well, the family believe that this was, as you say, a case of mistaken identity, and they want the forensic teams and the detectives and the police officers who've been in and out of this block all day, and they want them to tell them exactly why this mother of 9 and her nephew were targeted in this way and why they came to be shot early this morning. The victims have been named by the families as Annie Akofo, who was 52, and her nephew Burville, who was 21. Both had come to live here from Congo in Central Africa. And police tell us that they were called to a second-floor flat here at about 6:30 this morning after reports of a shooting. Inside, they found the bodies of the 2 victims, and they were pronounced dead at the scene. And family members who've also been coming here to grieve tell us that they definitely believe that these 2 people were the victim of mistaken identity.
If the person you were looking for wasn't there, then you should have left. You didn't need to kill someone that's near enough going into their 70s. Do you know what I mean? Like, she didn't deserve to die like that. No one deserved to die in their sleep.
Well, the police are still carrying out their investigations here, trying to figure out exactly what happened, why, and of course who was responsible.
All right, Sejal, thank you very much indeed.
Vulnerable and frail older people are bearing the brunt of cuts in government-funded care. According to a new report, 2 health charities found that the number of over 65s being helped in England had fallen by a quarter in just 4 years.
The report also said more care homes will go bust. Ben Chapman spoke to one elderly couple who fear they may be left to fend for themselves.
They have to get up at 5:30, do a medication, do a food. In between that, I've got to do a bit of housework. 10 o'clock, I'd start getting ready for bed, get ready for bed and get myself ready for bed. Just sandwich.
For thousands of people like Phil Armstrong, being a full-time carer is more than a full-time job. His wife Yvonne has a heart and lung condition requiring oxygen that confines her to the house and demands 24-hour care. But they're at risk of losing the help they currently receive 3 times a day and 2 nights a week, which they say is vital to give Phil a break.
It takes a lot out here, because you're having to look after somebody that can't do nothing for themselves. It'd be all right if Yvonne could do some of herself, but she can't.
The local NHS has told them Yvonne no longer meets its criteria, but a report today reveals that over the last 5 years, council spending on care for older and disabled people has fallen by 25%. The number of people aged 65 and over being helped has also dropped by 26%. It's left more than 1 million people with care needs fending for themselves.
What we don't know is actually what's happening to those people. Are they more reliant now on their families and friends to act as carers? Are they paying for somebody to come in and support them, which, by the way, is very expensive? Or what we know is happening is that a growing number of people are just going without.
Phil tells me he's been asked if he has relatives who can step in.
You don't ask your family to help you out, because they've got their own life to lead. So I think it's wrong what they're doing.
The government says it is investing in the system, but carers charities say it's people like Phil who are shouldering the burden of our ageing population. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Birmingham.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, 5 days after fainting, Hillary Clinton returns to the US presidential race.
Welcome back to Stronger Together.
How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great.
And emptying the bins once a month. The council's cutting back on rubbish collections. Those stories and more after the break. Join us then. Welcome
Welcome back. After Hillary Clinton collapsed last weekend, her rival Donald Trump is making sure the issue of health remains right at the forefront of the US election campaign. He's released his own medical records. A report from his doctor said the 70-year-old is in excellent health and does not drink or smoke. He is, though, apparently a little overweight. Mrs. Clinton, who has been suffering from pneumonia, returns to the campaign trail tonight. From the United States, Emma Murphy has more.
After 4 days off, this was Hillary Clinton returning to the campaign trail, seeking to put talk of ill health behind her and dispel any notion of weakness. She'll need to, because every poll shows a narrowing margin between her and Donald Trump.
Welcome back to Stronger Together.
How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
This was the last time the voters saw her late on Sunday, struggling to stay upright after becoming dehydrated while suffering from pneumonia. Her illness and these images have significantly changed the campaign, with the focus shifting to physical fitness. Whilst voters have heard from Hillary over the past days, it's Trump they've seen.
And in all fairness, she's lying in bed, getting better, and we want her better. We want her back on the trail, right? We want her back on the trail.
But for all the supposed good wishes, he's playing the health card as hard as he can.
I don't know, folks. You think Hillary would be able to stand up here for an hour and do this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Mr. Donald Trump.
And to keep the health pressure on, the man who's never shied from celebrity used the TV studios to release some of his medical history. For all the talk, not a lot was revealed. A bit overweight, statins for cholesterol, and high testosterone levels. It's all playing to one narrative.
When you're running for president, I think you have an obligation to be healthy. I just don't think you can do the work if you're not healthy.
Hillary Clinton is all too aware of the scrutiny she'll now face. Stand by for a very public show of health. Emma Murphy, ITV News, Washington.
Now, BBC stars such as Tess Daly and Claudia Winkleman are likely to have their salaries revealed next year. The government has ordered the broadcaster to detail the pay of all staff who earn over £150,000 a year. It's part of the plan to renew the BBC's Royal Charter.
The Bank of England has kept interest rates on hold at 0.25%. The rate was cut last month following Britain's vote to leave the EU, but minutes from the Monetary Policy Committee suggest there could be another rate cut before the end of the year.
And Paralympics GB have won another 4 gold medals at the Games in Rio. Natasha Baker defended her Olympic title in the dressage, and there were canoe golds for Jeanette Chippington, Emma Wiggs and Anne Dickens.
Now, if you think fortnightly bin collections are bad enough, how about this? Every 3 weeks, even once a month? Well, ITV News has learnt that more and more councils are considering such a move. Local authorities say the cuts are needed to save money and hit environmental targets. Our consumer editor Chris Choi reports from Conwy in North Wales, where 4 weekly collections are about to start.
Her rubbish leaves her home, but Teresa Kennedy knows that once it goes into the black bin, it won't be going anywhere for weeks. This mum of 5 is one among thousands of householders facing monthly bin collections.
The rubbish is going to be left there for 4 weeks in total, and the smell, for one, the mice that I'm going to attract, it's just going to make the place even worse. You're going to have people dumping the rubbish locally.
Refuse collectors are doing their last fortnightly collection on this street. The year-long trial affects 1/5 of the population. The council will collect recyclable and food waste weekly, but the big black bins containing the rest will have to wait, and Conwy isn't alone. Fife started a monthly bin collection trial last September. Although it was controversial, others are now following. Conwy's new system will affect 10,000 households. In October, Falkirk will become the first UK council to fully roll out monthly bin collections for all of its 70,000 households. And our research shows other councils such as Oldham, Argyll and East Renfrewshire are reducing from fortnightly collections to 3 weekly. The rising cost of using landfill dumps means councils must recycle more. In some areas, there have been outcries about losing the weekly bin collection. Here, you're going to monthly. What on earth makes you think that's acceptable to residents?
We did a survey of all our households in Conway. We had 11,000 responses, and 55% said they could cope with reduced frequency of collections. 60% said their bin was half full or less on collection day.
As recycling targets rise, bin collections are likely to fall, and the policy starting here today could be right on your doorstep in future. Chris Troy, ITV News, Conway in North Wales.
Well, to find out more about changes to bin collections or indeed share your pictures or experiences, go to our website, itv.com/news.
And finally tonight, China's Autumn Lunar Festival traditionally sees families get together to celebrate the moon. But locals in the southeastern city of Fuzhou got a closer look at the moon than they could ever have imagined.
A typhoon unleashed a giant inflatable which rolled its way along the streets. Officials say no one was injured in the incident. Prepare for a bad pun here, but a few were left moonstruck. Comedy gold.
Humour, all part of the deal.
Absolutely.
That's it. Tom Bradby is here at 10.
Bye from all the team here. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.